Hi everyone, this is Richard. I'm here with the beautiful voiced Dan, self-proclaimed beautiful voice, just a couple of minutes before we came on camera. We are here for our final installation of our Season 2 recap of Snowpiercer. Today we are recapping the double episode that happened this week that dropped on Monday, which is episode 9 and episode 10. Dan, how are you? What are your initial impressions of the two episodes?
My initial impressions of the two episodes are if season 1 and the first 7 episodes of season 2 weren't so good, I would not be in on season 3. Yeah, I was really not blown away by the last 3 episodes of the season. I think we discussed a little bit 2 episodes ago, and I didn't particularly like that. They just sort of fell off and wrapped it up a little quickly, and there was a lot of stuff that I thought they glossed over that they spent a lot of time building up over the course of the first couple of episodes of season 2, and just, you know, they made it a 2-hour finale on TV, and after the first hour, that episode was just so bizarre and so weird that it got to the second one, and the second one actually made sense. If they had made the second episode the first of the 2 episodes, I would have liked it a little bit better. And then if the second episode was a continuation from there, I would have been all right with it. But I didn't understand the second to last episode at all. It didn't fit it didn't fit the scene. It didn't fit the feel. It didn't fit the flow of the show. It just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, I really wasn't a fan of episode 9. Episode 10 brought it back up to a level that I can find acceptable, which will keep me hooked to get into season 3 when season 3 comes. But I know what you mean. It wasn't especially because the end of season 1 was so good, right? What the hell? This train came out of nowhere, Big Alice, and it's connected, and then the train stopped, and then cut to credits, and that was really good. Like, that really kept people going for season 2. Season 3, who knows? Let's see what happens. I mean, I'm still going to watch it, of course, but it did bring it back. The episode 9, I really wasn't a huge fan of. So let's go into episode 9, because that's probably the quicker of the 2, I imagine, that we're going to talk on. The problem I had with episode 9 and 10 is the timing of all this stuff. Like, what's the timing of it? Because especially when Ruth is doing the intro, and I quite like that intro from Ruth, where she's talking about how it's changed and it's all about order, and when you take away freedom, you take away, you know, kind of the feeling people have for each other. And she's talking like this was over 6 months, but it's over about 2 days. Like,
I thought even less than that. It was like it was like 24 hours maybe at most. It was a strange thing. Yeah, I agree with you. There is no correct timeline for the whole thing. Like, and it's really only one day. That episode is one day, right? For the most part. And in the morning, maybe.
And then they have the dinner party in the evening. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So it's either 24 or 48 hours, whereas every other episode, for the most part, like, you know, is over the course of, you know, a couple of days, or, you know, in Melanie's case, that one episode was over, you know, a month's time or something like that. But yeah, I guess it starts out with a little bit of the tone of the episode is what I don't, like I said in the beginning, that I didn't understand. Like, it just sort of seems to not fit. It's like the weird episode that doesn't make any sense to me. They threw some psychedelic stuff in there. They threw some weird stuff in there.
The whole funfair thing was stupid.
We're going to open up car number 272. What? It hasn't been opened in 7 years. And then it turns out to be his weird carnival thing. Now,
like a Punch and Judy show. And
I would be A-okay if they had an entire episode on Wilford and his drug use, and that's why there was car 272. It was some sort of LSD type of, like, weird trip thing that he had, and that was episode 8, and they had tied it in somehow. That would make sense. But to just throw in like 5 to 10 minutes worth of your finale episode, so to speak, if you're watching it here in the States, as something that they haven't talked about and just doesn't make it, doesn't add to it or anything like that. I didn't understand that part.
Early on in the episode, there's a couple of things that annoyed me over these 2 episodes, and I want to pick up on them. So early on in the episode, Wilfred is clearly making changes, and Leighton ends up working in the swamp, and people are getting moved around. And one of the people that gets moved is Javi. He gets moved to Big Alice to split him and Ben up. And what really annoyed me is he gets to Big Alice, and then he's immediately bossed around by Alex. Like, this is a guy who was probably one of the most talented engineers in the world, which is how he got the job in the first place. Like, are you telling me some 16-year-old girl can overrule him on anything?
There was two parts of the whole Javier thing that I didn't enjoy. One is that despite the fact that through the entire season he's been sort of we can perceive him as not Wilfred's lapdog, but definitely his preferred person. Like, he very clearly prefers him. He likes him, all the rest of it. He's like, wow, I hear you were on the toilet when the train got stolen from you and all the rest of it. He's scared of Wilfred, like scared shitless of him, which is incredible to me because, like, during the rest of it, like, it should just be Ben that's scared of him. It shouldn't be Javier. And then the scene when he meets Alex, they don't do the introductions of their names correctly. Right, he says Alex, and then she says, "Hi, nice to meet you," as if he's introduced himself as Alex, which was so confusing.
No, but she's typical kind of. No, not even that. Just, I mean, if you've ever seen, the social, what's it called, the social dilemma, like these young people, they can't do anything communication-wise anymore. Like, they just can't do it. So she's quite typical of an average 16-year-old, I'd imagine. Like, hi, my name's Richard. How are you? Just like
it's like I used to. Like working in the industry, every once in a while you go up to a table and you just be like, how did everything turn out for you today? And they'll just like respond with something that's just a complete non sequitur, and you're just like, whoa, where did that come from? You're like, do I stay and have a conversation with them, or do I just walk away from them? So
I've done it a bunch of times when I've been in restaurants and the waiter has gone, bon appetit, and I go, vous aussi, like, you too, have a nice meal, even though you're not eating.
I absolutely love that. I love when customers do that when they leave the restaurant, or when they're coming in and you're like, I hope you guys enjoy your meal, and they're like, you too, and then like they call you back and they say, well, I know that you're not eating right. It's all good. So I think the other one that's probably going to annoy you a little bit is Till. I could be wrong about that, but they built her up.
There's one other, and you're definitely going to agree with me, but it's not yet.
Let's talk about Till first, though. So Till, right, has this wonderful character development where she becomes one of the main characters in the season. Where I've commented multiple times on the fact that she's one of the few people with feelings, and she's got a really, really nice arc, and she's become one of both of our favorite characters.
Definitely.
And then she just gets held into this position with Wilfred as his advisor. But at the beginning of the episode, she's like the one person, her and Ruth are like the only people that actually sort of stand up a little bit to Wilfred in the episode, which I like. She says, there's no such thing as no crime. To Wilfred, which I thought was good. He was like, we don't need a detective because on my train that there is no crime, and she was just like, yeah, there is no such thing as no crime. You're just deceiving yourself. And then that's the end of her character development. That's it. She's done. She's just.
I think I wouldn't criticize it too much. It didn't really annoy me. I think it's just the whole scene has been bringing Till up to be one of the 6 leaders of the train, and basically the people who are on the small version of Snowpiercer at the end, like they're the main people, right? And it's just about bringing her up to that level. She's also acted as the conscience of the train, basically, or the humanity of the train, let's call it. So I wasn't massively disappointed with that. I think she was put in that position. What could she do? where can she go from there? She gets offered this position, maybe, fight the power from the inside, that kind of idea with it. So I wasn't too worried about that. One thing that did perplex me is, why did Josie dye her hair?
It happens naturally.
Right.
When you go outside the first time. So I wrote down that they're definitely trying to make us like Josie in the first episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're definitely trying to humanize her, which, I have so much animosity against her.
Feels a little too little too late.
Right, exactly. Like that, and that, like, you see the build up coming through the first of the 2 episodes, and you're just like, yeah, I know where this is going. But also, I was a little bit perplexed when the Hedwigs are talking to her. They seem to intimately know what the feeling of being outside is like, and I was just like, I doubt that Icy Bob is some sort of intellectual that's having these conversations with them after he comes back from being outside. And it's just like, well, the rush you feel. Let me just tell you about the rush. So I was a little bit confused about that. I was like, that's like a weird, I would have been all right if they asked her and she was just like, yeah, so it feels like this. And they're just like, oh, okay. And they note it down, but it's a rush, isn't it? You just feel like nothing else. I don't understand how you know
Yeah,
that.
so episode 9 was her doing a lot more tests. And one of the big things that came out of that creepy fun fair, and the metal arm. And
rock on.
and then one of the things was that Wilford reveals that he knows that they lost contact with Melanie, which Ben was forced to admit. So, and then they had that creepy dinner where they did that. One thing that this season I've praised nearly every episode with the music. And then this episode was terrible because you had that like creepy duet with Wilford and Audrey, like singing some World War II style song, like, from way back. And then you had Oz singing. Like, how did that save his life? That was just weird. I also wrote down LJ Alex friendship. Ha 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 ha. Because of you.
I wrote down what happened to LJ and Alex. I don't understand that story arc. They agreed to be enemies. I understand they agreed to be enemies. But when they agreed to be enemies, they weren't like they were friendly with each other. She just taught Alex how to smoke. They were smoking together on the observatory. And then, like, she just completely turns on it. And then my favorite thing about that entire dinner scene is how LJ just completely outs herself as a murderer. Just 100% outs herself as the murderer. Like, and Wilford picks up on it. Obviously, he picks up on it. But, like, they just kind of gloss over that. So she's like, let me tell you how your mom lies. Your mom lied, in my case, where she had a conviction against me. So, like, all right, so we all know that conviction was for cutting off men's penises and killing them, right? And then she lied. She said she talked to Wilfred and she got me off. And immediately, as any normal, sane, not even intelligent human being would be able to tell you, that means that she cut people's penises off and killed them. And Wilfred was like, so does that mean that you did it? And she's just like, no. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. But nothing came of that. That was it. That was the end of that storyline. You're like, all right, well, she...
But one thing we did see in that dinner was a real, no kind of acting anymore from Alex, like dead against Wilford, explaining why this census was going in place, because on Big Alice, at some point, they'd culled 50% of the population of Big Alice during the first 7 years. I'm really just warning Ruth, don't believe a word he says, which kind of was quite important because Ruth was invited to the dinner and she was offered the big job, right?
Yeah. So, interesting thing about, well, let me touch on Alex quickly first. She's the only one that outwardly, outside of Leighton, she's the only one that outwardly had the will to stand up against Wilfred, right? Like, she's the only one that, until Ruthie, obviously, and even Ruthie was kind of, like, a little bit timid with hers. But, like, it's obvious that Alex is the sort of strength, and the only other person that comes from a position of strength seems to be Leighton, and Leighton's obviously has been beaten down, but as we'll see later.
Well, it kept jumping to Leighton, and he's working in the compost
right, but
processor.
Yeah, so I liked it. I like the fact that she shows the strength. I find it kind of interesting that we talked about this a little bit throughout some of our synopsises where she's said things about Audrey and she stood up to Wilford and he sort of really hasn't done anything, and now it's come to this head, and it's like, if he was who, the leader that he wants to be and all the rest of it, he would have called that much earlier on. And I find it interesting, like maybe she is just such a good engineer that he couldn't deal without her or something like that, but you would imagine he would have seen the signs. And then it all comes to a head, obviously, at dinner. And then
Audrey, incredibly disappointing character development of Audrey.
Horrible. She's a useless character. She is now my least favorite character. She falls well below Josie because I just don't understand her. I don't understand the story arc. I don't understand any of it.
Well, I think the story arc is she's a survivor and, she'll kind of do anything to survive in whatever circumstance, because she even mentioned that to Zara at some point.
Yes, true. All right, so Ruthie. Interesting thing about Ruthie. I think the opening scene of the episode is the first time we saw her out of uniform in the 2 seasons, and then it happens again when she turns down the head of hospitality job.
Well, that's because it's at a price, right? She has to announce to the whole train that we're not going back for Melanie.
Right, exactly. So, my boy Kevin is given the is basically they're both invited to dinner, but there was one spot left open for dinner, and Ruthie had asked if she should unset it, and Wilford said no, and then 2 spots came available when Alex left, right? And so he sits both of them down and basically says, look, Ruthie, the job that you've always dreamed, you've always desired is yours. All you have to do is get over the loudspeaker and tell everybody that we're not going back for Melanie. And she kind of goes, I'm just not going to, okay, no. And so he says, all right. So,
fair play to her. She did that.
Yeah, I know. She said it like that first, and then she sort of grew a little bit more of a spine, and she was like, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. And you can see how much it hurts her to part with the teals, so to speak. And then you have the maniacal, weird character of Kevin sitting on the other side, sort of giggling to himself, knowing that he's got the job. And that was kind of a little bit strange. And Ruthie is separated from her character, from her teals, which is, the most important thing in her world. And she's sort of stripped of her sort of purpose. And
then she's sent to the swamp to work with Leighton.
The sewer?
Yeah, they called it like the composting department. Yeah. They called it the swamp, like the colloquial term for it.
Right.
We also had this story of Till watching these people being frozen. A little bit bothered me as well, because these breachmen are huge, right? And then the people who murdered them were like suburban 17-year-old kids who wouldn't be able to murder anybody.
Not to jump too far ahead, but we see Bulky take out 6 of them in a fight scene. Right, 6 armed. No,
but they're like full armed security.
I know.
Goons. They're not these like
that's what
skinny
I'm saying.
jeans kids.
It doesn't make any sense to me. It just
actually, I might as well bring my real bugbear is that Hollywood, can we stop these scenes where a 110-pound woman is fighting a 250-pound man and she's kicking his ass? Like,
no,
I know some women are hard asses, but like, there's no way that things like this would happen. Like, someone like Ben, okay, he's not Brock Lesnar, but like, he's got the baton. Like, he's taken that woman out. I can't remember her name. Like, Wilford's chief henchwoman.
I think it starts with a T. I can't remember her name either. Sykes or something like that.
Sykes, yeah. Like, he's murdering her.
My favorite part of that scene was, and mine
it's just It's like a Hollywood thing. It happens all the time, and it annoys me.
So I agree 100% with yours, and it's funny because I watched that scene, and I agree with you that woman's not taking another man, but I also hate it for a different reason. And my different reason is she beat the living shit out of him, and then he wins the fight by hitting her with a laptop. That was it. She hit him 100 times, right? Smacked him up, hit him with the baton. His head bounced off of things, and he wins with one shot.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you get this all the time where, like, you see a boxing movie and somebody just takes abuse and abuse and abuse and abuse.
Like Rocky or someone.
Right? And then one punch is all it takes. And you're like, look, I understand some people have, like, a strong chin or whatever else, but, like, that's not the way that it works. And also, once his head bounces off the thing, he's unconscious. Like, he doesn't win the fight just by this. So, like, that whole scene is just a joke in general.
But
so
before that's getting into the next episode,
yeah.
but I do want to round off episode 9.
Yeah, because I have a couple more points.
What do you think about... We complained last week. I think the person we really complained about the most last week was Leighton.
Yeah.
And then he went through this kind of traumatic loss of losing his power and, the whole... his vision changing and things. And then... by the end of the episode, he's kind of quite motivated again. He's motivating Ruth, they're high-fiving and things like this. And he seems to be kind of down for the fight again. And it all seemed to have... If this had been over a 3-month period, the whole episode, basically, I'd have been much more okay with it. But it seems like it happened over such a quick period.
Well... it does open up with him showing some sort of fight because he's obviously collecting the glass and he's collecting the whatever else that he finds and stuff like that. So, like, it seems like he's demotivated by the way he acts, but, I guess some of his other actions show that he still has that fight in him. I was just... I'm always surprised by things like this. This is one of my Hollywood or book gripes or whatever type of things. Is that, like, if you have somebody like him, you put him in jail. You don't put him in a place where he might get a piece of glass, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Also, like, I wrote Javier for the win, and that was the final scene. He comes up with, like, the craziest way of getting them a message with some lipstick.
Again, is there any reason for that orgy in Big Alice? Like, is there any reason for that scene?
I go back to this being on regular, not like, I guess cable TV is what the old school people would call it. I'm sorry for sounding like I'm 60 years old, but it's on regular cable TV and they're showing an orgy. I had to rewind to the beginning of that scene again and go, did I just really? This is what's going on here? It was
think of the children.
Right? It's who
will think of the children?
It's such a crazy thing. And really, I think my big takeaway from episode 9 is that going back to our very first recap, I tried to equate what I thought Snowpiercer was as a sort of an analogy for life or whatever else. The only thing I got from episode 9 is that Wilfred's a little bit like a combination between sort of Stalin and Hitler in that, like, he wants order, but he's going to do... Well, I guess he could just be Stalin because Stalin was bad enough. He doesn't need a combination of Hitler in there to make him worse. He's got 20 million bodies. He's got enough on his plate. But he wants order. He doesn't want communism, obviously. He wants to be at the head of things, but he wants to rule with an iron fist. And very much like Stalin, he has this ability to know everybody around his just anybody that's close to him, their weaknesses, obviously, except for Alex some way, somehow. So that's what the dinner is. It's like him very much, it's like when you have an open cut and somebody just puts their finger into it and just sort of presses on it. And he has this innate ability to be able to do that. And that's how he holds power. And as the episode goes on, whether it's taking Till as his advisor and killing the people with the lungs, knowing that that's going to mentally and emotionally affect her, offering Ruthie the job, knowing that she won't out Melanie over the loudspeaker to everybody, bringing LJ and Alex into the same room for the dinner, possibly that could Maybe he knew that was going to set off sparks or something like that. He just has a way of breaking everybody down, and that's the only real thing that I took away from episode 9 is that he has an ability to do all of this, and also at the same time, given any great dictator of that ilk, he doesn't do it enough, and there's weaknesses and holes in it. So the fact that he put Leighton in a position where he could, get something or other. And so that way he could fight back, even giving him Ruthie, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you don't give him Ruthie, then you don't get the revolution doesn't happen, and that sort of stuff. So that's what I really took away, and that's the only positive I took away from that episode.
Well, just before we kind of round off episode 9, Harvey is contacted by Melanie, right? He finds he has a radio message from Melanie. And then he manages to get a message through to them through that ingenious...
During the orgy. Yes. And Wilford in his... I thought, like, I was waiting in that scene for their, like, because Audrey has, like, Kevin go down on her. Right? Some weird thing. And Wilford's got this look on his face, and I thought there was going to be some anger, jealousy, or animosity, or something like that. And then the message comes in, and he walks up towards Javi, and I thought, like, oh, great, this is going to be a great scene. And then nothing really comes out of it except for Javi, getting the message to Leighton through the lipstick.
Which they then get in the composting area, and it looks like kind of Leighton's back. He's re-energized, re-motivated at the end of the episode.
I like
and you think of
I like how the scene is they're there and something comes down from sewage or whatever, and Ruthie's like, ooh, shiny. I like that. I'm going to make that. Oh, look, it's lipstick. I could possibly use that down here. And the first thing she does with the lipstick is open it and twist it as if she's going to put some lipstick.
Well, no, she's always liked lipstick. Like, it's been part of her character that she's
I know it. I just found it so funny that was like, oh, while I'm down here in the sewage, let me put on some lipstick. Ooh,
I'm trying to think of a sporting example where someone has been so broken like Leighton was, and then back motivated again. Is this James Harden leaving Houston? I'm struggling to think of another example. I'm sure you've got one.
It's funny because immediately I went to like a fight thing, and the only thing I can think about that just popped up to me, and I'm not sure you're gonna get this one, was the second Stipe Miocic Daniel Cormier fight, where Cormier's just ripping him through the whole fight, and then somehow in the third round, Miocic realizes that if he just hits him in the big old belly, he's going to beat him, and just beats the crap out of him. But the whole first 2 rounds, you're just like, Cormier's going to win this fight again. He's going to win this fight again. He's going to win this fight again. And then all of a sudden, like, if you were live betting the thing, you're just like, I'm going to bet all of my money on this guy. And then all of a sudden, from absolutely nowhere, this guy came roaring back. But no, I can't think of a better sports analogy than that. Somebody's career that just gets revived.
Well, James Harden's a bad one because he's a playoff choker and he's never won anything and he never will win anything. So I don't really like to use him as an example.
And he's got to be surrounded by all of the it's sort of like he got instead of the Avengers, he got the Justice League, Zack Snyder's director's cut.
I hate that Flash. I hate the guy who plays the Flash.
So, like, we didn't care about it the first time we saw the movie, and now they've made it 4 hours long, so we really don't care about it. But there's people that will tell me that it's a different movie, and to those people, I tell you, go fuck yourself.
All right, let's get into episode 10. Episode 10, we had the intro from Alex, which I quite liked as well. Alex is in a brig, by the way, as well, which we didn't mention. Which we didn't know, I think, at the end of episode 9, but we did know at the end of at the start of episode 10 that she's in the brig.
She breaks pretty easily.
Well, no, I mean, she was offered a way out. Like, she wasn't even really locked in. She had to, show fidelity to Wilford, or she'd be one of les oubliettes, as was explained.
Right. I love that. I was like, Rich is gonna love this. He's got a French word. I just have to say one little note about the intro is that she calls him Daddy Dubs. and that was really creepy sounding. I was just like, I was raised by Daddy Dubs, and I was just like, oh man, does that sound like the intro to a porno?
Daddy's such a creepy word, isn't it?
Right? Yeah, and the fact that like he raised her to call him that too, like that he did. He was like, my name is Daddy Dubs, and it's like, wow, okay, and this is my train. It's nice and big, isn't it?
The thing that did interest me though is Leighton and Ruth hatch a scheme to kill a guard and get out.
Yeah, I wrote
Worked out pretty well.
I wrote Ruthie equals ruthless. Yeah, that was as I discussed to you, I found it very difficult getting through this episode. So as my notes went on, I wrote less and less, and I was just like, ruthless. Yeah, that's the way to go.
So they managed to do that, get out of Big Alice.
It was a pretty ingenious escape. I think we talked about in that Melanie episode about the Taily traps and stuff like that, and Leighton was able to ingeniously make a Taily trap and overpower the guard. And they stabbed him a couple of times, and then Ruthie ended it with the handle of the shovel.
Yeah, and then they are kind of working their way through Big Alice. They come across Alex, who is locked in a...
Shocker, right? Yeah.
And she tells them the way...
34 cars, but they end up with her there.
They're at the back of the train. Right? And she tells them the way to get to the engine of Big Alice, which they do. And they find some swords. I quite like that. I really like that scene of where he was like, okay, 3, 2.
So quick point on that. This one I don't get. So like they're in late 21st century, 22nd century, whatever it is. I'm not exactly 100% sure.
They're in like 2028 or something.
Yeah. Okay. So it's
it's not far.
So it's 21st century, right?
They're like 10, 15 years ahead.
Right. So there's no guns on Big Alice.
Right.
Leighton, right, who comes from wherever. I think he comes from Chicago. Right, gun capital of the freaking world, pulls out the sword and just waves it around like he's some sort of like 1600 knight.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Yeah, right. He's like, the balance on the blade is exactly how I expected it back in my day, and I was just like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Then they bring it all back together because when they actually kill the 2 guards, they show absolutely no swordsmanship skills whatsoever. They just go.
Right, I quite like that, especially when Ruth ran in early. That's kind of funny. They had a bath as well. Like they saw the bath. I quite like that. Like whole few minutes.
Yeah, he's like, ooh, it's time to take a bath, and he's like, after you, Ruthie. he looks as put together after that bath as he has in the entire season. Even when he was doing that dinner with Wilford when he got dressed as Zara, I was just like, man, you look. Like you
he found a leather jacket somewhere, just lying around.
Wow, do you look good? Like who knew where that was coming from? It becomes very obvious very early on that any main character not named LJ is 100% against Wilford, right? It was all the characters that we've come to know. And then Wilford. And Audrey is non-existent because she's really non-existent in these 2 episodes besides the
What was the plan, though, with Josie? Because we'll get into Josie a bit more later, but what do you think Wilford's plan was with Josie?
I wrote down, I don't understand how he doesn't know who Josie is. So I
assumed he did, but...
Right? So there was a scene with Audrey and Josie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 2 episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
So... the only thing I can think of is Audrey really on the rebels or the revolutionary side against Wilford because she didn't tell him, or was she too drunk? But like how can you skip over such a salient piece of information, right? This needs to be addressed, and it wasn't addressed. And how Wilford thinks that Josie is just going to blindly turn against love and turn against everything because he bathed her in goop and changed her, or goo rather, and changed her. And, made her some sort of incredible, like, bioweapon or whatever else. Like, I just don't understand, like, how... like I just said for episode 9, he has this way of knowing about everybody, but he just doesn't know about Josie.
Yeah, it's a big blind spot in the storyline. I'm not too sure about that one. I mean, maybe that's one that'll come back, and then who knows...
No, dude, they don't do flashbacks. Let's be realistic. I've been
but I mean, maybe that will become relevant later. Yeah, they won't be doing a flashback. Ruth and Leighton get out of Big Alice. They're smuggled in the circus box. And they're joined up with people. That guy who wears his hat like an idiot, the Taily, I don't know his name.
With the fitted hat.
And lights and Bosky as well. He's in on the let's go make cool. I wrote down.
He's my favorite character. He's easily my favorite character. I just love the exaggerated accent. Like, he's American. He's definitely got to be.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Also, another scene that I liked was Audrey getting punched by Till.
Yeah. I think Till was just out of her wit's end with everything and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember that one off the top of my head.
So tell us about the plan. What's the coup plan?
The coup plan is to take over the engines, both the engines, mm-hmm. and then essentially pick up Melanie. Right. And they were going to do this in a multitude of ways. They're obviously just going to forcibly take them over. They had to switch tracks to get on the correct loop. Which was some sort of sidetrack or whatever else. And then once they did that, they'd be able to slow the train down, pick up Melanie. And then, basically, I guess the assumption is that once they had Melanie on board and all the rest of it, the whole train would fall in line again because, they had proven that they could take over the train. And then they had Melanie and they had outside information. And then that was going to be a positive, sort of thing. So, I guess that was really what it was. I mean, there wasn't too much to it. Yeah.
But it doesn't work.
No, because Ben's the weak link. And then after Ben gets into this epic fight, they do turn up the closed loop or whatever else. And obviously it's a sidetrack, so that means that it's a bit bumpy. And then it cuts to Alex and LJ and Wilford, and they have the tea that he's drinking is shaking, and he's just like, call up to the front and tell me what's going on. And so she calls up to the front. She's talking to Ben, and she goes, she's proper and correct and all the rest of it, and
just like her mother.
Just like her mother, and she says, it's just a little avalanche debris. And then just completely out of nowhere, LJ goes, I've seen your mother lie like that before. And Wilfred just blindly goes, okay, yeah, I'm going to go and see what's going on. And when he goes and looks out the window, he realizes that they've turned up the loop, and then that sets him on fire.
What did you think about the Spanish music? Javi was playing some Spanish music.
I like the fact that they waited until episode 9 and 10 to even address the fact that he was Spanish. Right? There were no Spanish words that he said in any other episode until...
Piense. He said piense. I don't speak Spanish, but I think that's think. Yes.
Think is pensar.
Oh, right. Very good.
Yeah. I'm just going to unconjugate the verb for you. Look, I work in a kitchen that has a lot of Hispanic folk in it. I speak a lot of Spanish at work. Most of it not appropriate for this podcast. But yeah. No, I like myself some Spanish music. So, and I just looked it up. I was wrong. The guy who plays Bosky is was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, so he has a very Russian sounding name, but he is not Russian.
I mean, there is a huge Eastern European diaspora in Canada, but still, that accent's fake as hell. He sounds like Bret Hart or someone instead.
Yeah, I do not like.
And Javi pays the ultimate price for his treachery.
Yeah, he definitely does.
I didn't particularly appreciate him being killed by a dog like they could have.
Yeah, I wrote down no guns equals weirdly primitive, right? Like he goes, go get my dog. And I thought he was going to get Icy Bob. Like I genuinely thought that's what that was.
No, I kind of thought, no, he's going to get the hound.
I don't even remember his dog. Yeah, no, I don't remember that. And then he gets the dog and then he's just like, don't kill him. And then he's just like, I'll let my dog kill him. And I was just like, what is it, the 17th century again?
But really good thing from Alex, because Alex turns the tide by slitting Wilford's throat.
Oh, right. I was like, where do we go with? Well, she, in in her conversation with Leighton and Ruthie, right, they say, we'll get you out of here, right? We kind of skip this part. And she says, no, I can get myself out of here. I just have to go kiss the ring. So so in that scene where she lies and she gets caught out in her lie by LJ, Wilford says, guards, take her away. As she's leaving, she picks up a razor blade and hides it in her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I always find this a very amusing thing. If you hide a razor blade in your mouth, it's not going to go well for you. And also, nobody saw it. Nobody saw her pick it up, and then nobody saw her put it in her mouth. But either way, I digress from that.
But you watched WWE for like 15 years, and you never saw a razor blade, even though they use them all the time.
True. You make a good point. High production quality.
Real as well.
Oh yeah, 100% real. And you don't even get to watch it, but I keep referencing that they have the AEW commercials on there for me, whatever it's called. So like every time I fast forward through the commercials, I get the tail end of some promo for that. But yeah, so she slits his throat, and the Hedwigs sew him back up, and he's not going to die because that's how good they are. And despite the fact that his carotid artery or whatever gets slit,
right.
He's perfectly fine to continue walking around the train because they're such good doctors. He doesn't even need an IV drip. He doesn't need to rehydrate at all. He is perfectly fine to continue about culling the revolution.
Look, just because your parents are medical professionals doesn't mean you know anything about medicine.
Yeah, I know a thing or two about blood loss. I've donated blood before. I can tell you, you're not ready to walk around a train like that after you've lost a pint of blood. It just doesn't happen. Yeah.
So the plan changes because they missed Melanie, and Leighton and Bosky, they actually see Melanie, and then Alex sees her, and as the train's going past, and so the plan changes. The plan is...
Well, the plan changes as well because... after Javier pays the price, Wilford basically picks up the momentum, Sorry, that was very unprofessional of me. It was a spam call, too. It wasn't even a good phone call. So Wilford ramps up the gas on the train and basically says, you guys can pull against me, but if you guys pull against me, we're going to go over the cliff. And I find it interesting that he's so hell-bent on getting his own way that he'd rather die than lose.
I think it was just a high-stakes bet, and it's,
Yeah, I think he would have
chicken with Ben, basically.
I think he would have gone through with it, but obviously we don't know because that's not how the books were written, so it doesn't matter.
So the plan changes. The plan is that they are going to detach part of Snowpiercer
at the aquarium car
because that is the only one you can manually detach.
Because fuck the fishes.
Right.
And so at this point, Wilford deploys his secret weapon, aka the one person that every human being knows is working for Snowpiercer. Let's get outside, Josie. And they just send her out. They don't know, the Hedwigs don't even know whether she's going to be, 100% effective. They say she's stronger than Icy Bob, and that they've created, over the years, they've made it better and blah, blah, blah.
Because her plan, Wilford wants her to go all the way up to the engine and jump in a hatch there and take out Ben, right?
Right, that's correct.
But on her way, Ben switches radio channels and talks to her.
And also, the worst CGI of all time is her running on top of the train. Like, every once in a while, you just see something, you go, I know that this is all fake, but this is even more fake than everything else. Like, this is just... yeah, and you're just like, this is just so god-awful and terrible and all the rest of it. So... in all of this, obviously, Audrey is taken captive by the revolutionaries, so she's a hostage. They all come to a head in the aquarium car, right? There's Leighton. Well, Leighton draws in Wilford, I guess, to the aquarium car.
Well, he's basically stalling him while Bosky is doing the work on the lower level.
Yes, and Wilford's sent out a bunch of people on the lower level to stop whoever's, doing it, obviously Bosk. And so they meet up in the aquarium car and they have this, standoff between Leighton and Till and Ruthie, and they have Audrey as a captive, and then Wilford on the other side. And there's a big J on the floor, just in case you didn't know it was a J-link, which they talked about. And they talk about how they're going to detach it, and he says, "Who do you have down there?" And basically that's when we get the scene where Bosky takes out 6 or 7 of these armed people, but obviously won't be able to manually detach the train. So Wilford gets, a little bold, and he steps back over the J. At that moment, the other J, Josie,
comes in like the Winter Soldier and smashes the roof of the aquarium.
At which point it freezes in shards. It doesn't freeze the whole thing at once like it would. It freezes down, kills 3 fish, and then I wrote. So basically, the train that train car explodes. Right? It freezes and it explodes, and that detaches the whole the 10 cars that they talk. You have
go on, keep going.
So it detach. Each side jumps back. Right, so that way they're safe from it, and somehow the doors close, and so they're all warm and protected. The only thing I don't get, which I wrote down, is I was like, "Where's Josie?" She shows up. It's fine. She's good. But like we see the sort of explosion, I guess is what we call it, and she's on top of the train. So it doesn't make sense that she survived it. Like, she's impervious to cold. She's not impervious to falling on the tracks and dying. Right, so that doesn't make any sense.
Like the blast pushed her over.
Yeah. Obviously, she trampolined onto, wherever.
I did want to jump in because I wrote it down and I forgot to mention the girliest scream ever from Kevin when he gets electrocuted. I don't know if you noticed this when Ruth electrocuted him when she took the tears back.
Her obsession with the uniform is just something that, like, for some reason I both love and hate. Like, she goes like, she's in the middle of this revolution. They're in the middle of their plan, and she walks by an open door, and it's like a little kid smelling chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, it's just you've never had a job like that, and I've not. It's like, but if you ever watch interviews with people who worked for, like the royal household and
eaters,
or even just like some butler at Buckingham Palace, like they're so attached to it.
Yeah, I guess you're right. And, like, I would die for the pinstripes if you're a Yankees player or whatever else, Like, I guess I get that. But we did gloss over that. She goes in and she gets her uniform back. Kevin's sitting there all sinister going, like, whatever. And he's got the baton, and then she destroys him with it, and he screams like a girl. And
at least that was realistic, because she just knees him in the private parts. So that's kind of realistic. But I'm not having this, like, 110-pound woman doing roundhouse kicks and like I see in every Hollywood film nowadays. Like, it's
granted, Amanda Nunes would kick my ass.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I get
it. But not this one. I don't know what you have against black women. But yes, a black woman could beat up an Irish man, Richard. All right, it is possible.
So the train's disconnected, and the leaders of the front part of the train, they go back. And how's that happening? That must take some time, though, right? Because
I don't really understand. I like that last part. I don't get at all. They blow up the train. Like, even in the scene, the bottom of the train is still connected, right? So it doesn't make any sense. Like, it's like the aquarium part explodes, but like the main part of the train, whatever the base is still connected. And then all of a sudden they are disconnected, and it worked. And somehow the explosion doesn't mess up either of the trains. They're perfectly fine. Yeah. But so now they're going backwards. It's got to take them a little bit of time, but I can't imagine how long it was, like, in between when Wilford almost threw them off the cliff and when everything happened. It was probably only like an hour or two, right?
Right, but then how long is it between the train being disconnected and then picking Melanie up?
No, but they said the seat cuts to them being stopped. And Till says it's really hot in here. And Ben says, we're 10 cars long. We're driving a Lamborghini now. Or Ferrari. I can't remember.
Ferrari. Yeah, but like...
So they're obviously going faster. But also, they're now able to stop without it freezing. There's a lot of holes in this.
Yeah, but then, I mean, like, what was how many days, hours, months, whatever, between the aquarium blowing up and them being stopped going to find Melanie, like, at that point? Because they're at the front of the train, right? So they've got to, like, go round some track to get back.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Because
it's not like if Big Alice was cut off, they can just reverse.
Yeah, they can reverse. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I was thinking about it in a very different way.
So, like, how long is that?
I mean, it was a closed loop, right, that they were going around?
Yeah, but is it a closed loop of the whole United States? Or, you know, I mean, it's the Rocky Mountains, I guess, but they're still pretty big.
Rocky Mountain loop. Yeah, the Rocky Mountains go literally from Canada. There is the Canadian Rockies, right? Starts in, like, Arizona and goes all the way up to Canada. So I don't really know. It's a good question. We would have to go back to when they first, like, that episode when they first talked about dropping Melanie off. Right, that would probably give us some answers to that if we actually felt like going back and looking at that. It's probably a smaller loop and, you know, whatever else. So they
get back to the site, and
I hated the ending.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really didn't like that ending because they was just such like they gave no indication that it would happen, like, or it could happen, right? So they get, you know, Alex and Leighton hike up. Alex is struggling. It's cold. It's tough to walk through the snow, but they get there. They see the site, and they get inside the site, and they're looking for Melanie, and it becomes obvious very quickly that Melanie is not alive. They look at one bed, they look at another bed, and then they find her data drives, and in her data drives, you know, she's kept them warm in some sort of insulated thing, and Alex is just like, oh well, you know, she saved these or whatever. Obviously, there's no body anywhere. I don't know where she went out. Oh, she went out.
She went out into the white. Yeah,
that's right. I forgot that for a second. But it just seems strange to me because there's no indication in the episode with Melanie that she would run out of power, right? And
she ran out of food.
Yeah, but she also ran out of the ability to keep the place warm. That's why she hooked. That's why in that one area.
Because
she says in her speech, she says, "I'm there's enough energy to keep these warm for a couple of months, but that's it. And I've also ran out of my rat supply." It was the two things. Yeah. And there's no indication to me. This is like the last part that I was actually alive for before I fell asleep. Right. So I do remember her actual speech. And I found it very strange because there's no indication given that she wouldn't be able to keep the station warm enough for her to live in. And also, as we discussed in the last episode, or not the last episode, her episode, how many freaking rats are there? Right? She's only been there for a month. How could she have eaten all the rats? They've had 7 years of reproduction in that place. It seems so strange to me that she's run out of food, and also between
that's my thing. Like, how long's that?
Right?
Distance?
Yeah. I see why. I see that's why it's a silly question. Because between her missing the train and them getting there must have only been a day, and she couldn't have survived that one day with no food. She survived like 3 days with no food. Mm-hmm. I just don't like the ending. The ending is to wrap it up in a bow.
Yeah.
Where I think. What's her name? It's not Jennifer Garner, right? It's Jennifer Connelly.
Connelly.
Yeah. So how long until we get a male Me Too against her? Or how long until we find out that she is the worst person in the world to work with? Because they just straight wrote out their signature.
Oh, you think she's gonna get Me Too'd?
She's gonna, like, she hates black
people. She's gonna get Ellen'd.
Yeah, she's a horrible person to work with. Daveed Diggs started getting too much screen time, and she was just like, well, let me tell you about these black people. They don't deserve to be in Hollywood. And it's like, I just don't understand it. She was literally the character that they built everything on. They're like, watch Snowpiercer featuring Jennifer Connelly. That was all season 1 was.
Yeah.
And now it's so bad that, like, she hasn't featured in season 2 much. She had one episode about her, and now they've 100% written her out without giving her so much as an actual, like, cameo speech at the end that's properly her. They gave her a voiceover speech. And I don't get that. I just don't understand it.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. There could be a bunch of reasons, right?
It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like obviously this is the way the books do it. Otherwise they wouldn't have done it because this is based off a book. So I can't question why she's dead. But there has to.
Well, how close is that? Because like they made a film as well, and the film was completely different from the series. So without actually reading the book, like, I mean, like Wilford's at the front of the train driving the thing in the film.
Is he? I don't remember that.
It was
I thought it was.
What's it called?
I thought it was that weird David Bowie, like amorphous transgender sort of character that was Melanie. Still, but I could be wrong. I don't really remember the amorphous. I can't remember.
I need to go back.
I do it amorphous with transgender for any of you guys that want to cancel me. All 3 of my subscribers, cancel me now. Yeah, they wrapped it up too quickly. They didn't give Melanie any sort of screen time from when she made it down to the train and when she made it back. I agree. I don't think it could be that long in that loop. Like, there was no, like, 3 days later they got there. Like, it could not have been all that long. It really in my opinion. And also, I don't understand, how can they stop?
There's a lot of questions. Let's spend 5 minutes wrapping this up. A couple of quick fire questions. Number 1, favorite character of season 2?
Ruthie.
Yeah,
Ruthie.
Quick explanation.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Till.
Okay. Yeah.
You see growth in Till's character. She represents the general opinion of the train and the viewer quite well.
I like the fact that Ruthie made me like her.
Worst character of the series?
Audrey. I mean, I just don't understand her. And if it's not Audrey, it's LJ. You know, like,
I gotta go LJ. I can't stand this girl.
I can't stand her either. I mean, Josie's right up there with it. I would go in between Audrey and Josie. I don't like LJ, but at least she stays true to herself. I don't understand Josie's weird role and the loops that she creates in the story. And Audrey just makes no sense to me. Like, I don't get her character at all. I don't get the weird arc.
Best episode of the season.
Melanie's.
Yeah.
It's not even close. Like, it's not even. I was looking up just that way. If I had done the intro, I would have known the names of the episodes, and they've got them rated. And, you know, obviously on IMDb. And they're all like 8s or 7s or something like that. And Melanie's is an 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
So even everybody else fully agrees with us that that's the best episode.
Yeah. I'd say episode, what was it, 8 maybe was the worst one. Well, my Leighton's down.
9.
So 9 was weird as well. Yeah.
9 just didn't make any sense to me. That was my least favorite episode. Yeah, I'll go with that. Most character development, probably Ruthie for me. Yeah. Yeah. What's any other?
The storyline that they didn't do that you really wanted to see.
Every prediction I made. Every single prediction from the very first recap. Yeah. I would have loved a proper flashback episode to get a little bit more character development. And I would have liked the Aussies that definitely not that. Audrey, I would have loved Audrey's storyline properly, right? Like an actual in-depth look into it, so that way her character made sense to me.
I'd have loved an episode seen through the eyes of a regular person on Snowpiercer, whether it be a tailie or someone in third class, and I'd love to see Snowpiercer through their eyes, especially with all these changes after Leighton took power, maybe like 3rd or 4th episode of season 2. I think that could have been a really cool thing to do.
Biggest remaining question you have after watching season 2?
Yeah, why are people in lockers and like?
I was gonna go with Roach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, what's going on with that?
Why would
my biggest question?
Why would they take such a big seminal character and cut him out of the last 2 episodes like that? You know, he should have been part of the revolution.
Well, and then we've got to look forward to season 3 because they've found, thanks to Melanie and her data, there's various places around the world that are now habitable.
Predictions for season 3. I
mean, initially, I've not got too many because obviously we'll do a big prediction episode before season 3.
Coming soon.
When is it coming? Do you know?
I have not a clue.
Yeah, I mean, has it even been confirmed?
I mean, on IMDb it says that there's a season 3, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, really it's in pre-production or something.
Yeah. I mean, I have a few, and I mean,
they'll come back, they'll join the train, and then there'll be some effort to should we stop, should we not, and
confirmed. Season 3 confirmed.
Okay.
When? No release date. Previous series can run and second channel production is currently ongoing under some coronavirus restrictions. So they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't know when.
Okay.
Season 3 should see several faces returning. One star who will be back is Jennifer Connelly. Don't ask me. All right, so
did you just feel the need to throw in one more bad prediction just before the end of our season 2?
No, I just had to read that. No, I have.
No, but then you like 10 minutes ago you said like, oh, she was probably like racist or like really difficult to get on with. just one more bad prediction for all time's sake.
I have a couple predictions that I know will be right. Like I'm 100% positive of this. One of the main storylines for season 3 is going to be Zara. Because they made a big deal about it in the end of the episode and how important she is to both Leighton and also to Wilfred and how Wilfred is going to use her. Like they made a very specific scene talking about how Wilfred holds her up on a pedestal and all the rest of it. So I think that's a big thing. And then biggest prediction sure to come right in season 3 is that we will have a Josie and Icy Bob fight.
Yeah, that would be a cool one, actually.
Yeah, right? Because they each now have an ice character. So the train of 10 cars up against the train of 2023 cars. Because obviously they lost one.
1,023.
Yes, 1,023 cars. They have to have their ice people duel to the death, right?
Yeah, and there will be. I mean, I'm guessing they're stopping the train like at some point permanently.
That'll be the last episode in season 3. You know, they'll have the train stopped and they'll be back outside and whatever else. But yeah, I think.
Well, we'll do a proper prediction one because I'd love to take a couple of months off it and then probably before season 3 starts, have a look, watch them all again, and then kind of get a few more thoughts from that.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch them all again. So, I mean, I guess if Melanie's coming in, then I'll finally get my flashback episode.
Well, yeah, it's the only way, isn't it? Unless
we found her. She's not quite dead yet.
Right. She sat in a cave and found another rat cave or something.
I saw an article yesterday. Some scientists found some prehistoric worms and they defrosted them, and like two of them started eating again. One of them's like 42,000 years old and the other one's 36,000 years old, so they're alive. So maybe Melanie will survive. She's a worm, a prehistoric worm.
Maybe.
That's
well, on that note, tell people what they can find from your YouTube now that there will no longer be a weekly Snowpiercer review for the foreseeable future.
Sad days, right? So I didn't put out a podcast yet this week, but I will put out a long form podcast, most likely on Easter Sunday because I'll have some extra time. So you can check out. Yeah, I know, right? Freaking Jews. So you can find. I do at least one, if not 2 short clips that are either rants or a joke each week. And then I do a long form podcast where I sort of ramble on and talk about 2 or 3 different subjects. Usually the state of America, state of myself, or something along those lines. I try and make them a little bit funny. My most recent one was a little bit depressing. But yeah, that's you can find me, Bird in the Hand podcast. And then, Richard, you have some stuff for Americans trying to learn English.
Yeah, I'm gonna get anybody trying to learn English. I'm going to get back to a bit more detailed stuff over the next couple of weeks. I'm really going to be going into some detail on phrasal verbs, which are always things that learners need to raise their English up to that B2, C1 and above level. So keep tuned for that. And then who knows, maybe we'll add in a couple of quick film reviews, or maybe even choose another mini series. But I do definitely want about a month or two off it, and then we might get together and have a think about.
Coming soon, Kong versus Godzilla review. Yeah, you can stay tuned. Every once in a while, we'll definitely we talk once a week, so we may, next week we have a nice little topic conversation that we're gonna have, and we might record it, and we might just put some stuff up for any of you guys that enjoy our content. We appreciate any of you liking, subscribing, following us. And yeah, just be on the lookout.
I got a lot of basketball opinions as well, so maybe we'll do a playoff episode, and we'll do a few predictions before the playoff kickoff.
We'll look back at our preseason predictions and then make some playoff predictions. How's that?
Yeah, but I'm pretty confident. The Wizards are turning around at the right
time. Some of them are like the Rockets. We both got wrong. Like, there's no.
I mean, whichever team gets the most triple doubles gets in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, right.
All right, great. Guys, thank you for watching during the last 9 episodes of our review. It's been a new thing for us, for both of us, for Dan and I. It's been fun as well. It's been something to look forward to, especially during these times when there's really not that much to do apart from work and go out and exercise, and even all that can get a little bit boring sometimes. So thanks everybody for your sticking with us, and hopefully it was. We're not trying to change the world here, just add a little bit of light entertainment and follow along with something you guys have been watching. So yeah. Stay tuned for season 3.
Absolutely. Take it easy, everybody.
Easy. Bye.